Finally, he whispered, "My name is Evan." Jack nodded slowly, but Evan continued before he could speak again. "I didn't know if I should come. I wasn't even sure he'd want to see me." His voice cracked just slightly, but enough for Jack to hear the pain buried underneath. It wasn't the kind of pain caused by anger. It was the kind that came from being alone for a long time. Jack took a step closer, his tone softening. "Son, you're safe here. Whatever reason you came, you can say it." Evan swallowed hard, eyes glistening with the tears he tried to hide. "He's my dad," he said, barely louder than a breath. "And I don't know where else to go." The air tightened around them. The barn seemed to hold its breath, the dust hanging suspended like the moment itself. Jack had suspected something, but hearing the truth spoken aloud made everything sharper, clearer, heavy enough to settle deep in the room before Jack could say another word. Heavy footsteps echoed outside, growing closer. Evan stiffened instantly, fear flashing across his face. Jack turned toward the doorway just as Nathan appeared, breathing hard, eyes widening the moment he saw Evan standing there. Nathan froze. Evan froze. The world seemed to freeze with them. Jack stepped back, giving space to the truth that was finally standing in the same room. Nathan's voice trembled as he whispered the boy's name, and just like that, the secret Heartland never saw coming was suddenly standing in the open. Impossible to hide anymore. Nathan's breath caught in his throat the moment his eyes landed on Evan. It was as if the world tilted beneath him, dragging every buried memory to the surface all at once. He took a single step forward, then stopped, unable to move any closer. Evan didn't speak. He didn't blink. He stood there like a boy caught between running away and running towards something he had been searching for his whole life. The space between them felt painfully heavy, filled with years of silence, years neither of them could take back. Jack didn't say a word. He simply stepped aside, sensing this was a moment that didn't belong to him. The barn suddenly fell to still, the air to thick. Even the horses quieted, as if they knew the ranch was witnessing something life-changing. Nathan finally found his voice, low and unsteady. "Evan, what are you doing here?" The question wasn't harsh, but it wasn't gentle either. It carried fear. It carried confusion. And beneath all of it, it carried a sorrow so deep Evan felt it cut through him like a blade. He lowered his eyes, gripping the strap of his backpack until his fingers turned white. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he let the silence sit a moment longer, gathering the courage to speak the truth he had been carrying alone. "I didn't know where else to go," Evan whispered at last. The words trembled out of him like something fragile. "I tried calling you, but you never picked up." There was no accusation in his voice, just hurt. Pure, quiet hurt. Nathan's face tightened, as if every word struck him where it hurt the most. He rubbed his hand over his jaw, struggling to breathe. "Evan, he began, but the sentence collapsed before he could finish it. How do you explain years of absence to a boy who needed you? How do you apologize for trying to hide the one truth that mattered?" Evan lifted his gaze slowly, meeting Nathan's eyes for the first time in years. In those eyes, Nathan saw everything he had tried to outrun, the fear, the loneliness, the questions he never answered. "Mom's gone," Evan said quietly. His voice wavered, but he didn't look away. "She got sick, and she didn't make it." Nathan's legs almost buckled beneath him. The words slammed into him harder than any blow. His face paled, his eyes glistening with pain he could no longer contain. For a long moment, he couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe. The woman he once loved, the woman who had begged him to be a part of Evan's life, gone. And he hadn't even known. Evan continued, his voice barely holding together. Before she passed, she told me I needed to find you. She said you were the only family I had left." He took a shaky breath. "She said you'd take care of me." Nathan's heart shattered right there in the barn. All the walls he had built, all the excuses he had clung to, all the fear he used to justify staying away, it all crumbled in a single moment. He stepped closer to Evan, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, for her. for any of it. Evan blinked fast, fighting tears he didn't want to show. I don't want an apology, he said softly. I just want to know if you want me here. Or if I should leave. Nathan felt those words bury themselves deep in his chest. He shook his head quickly, terrified by the thought. No, Evan. Don't leave. Not again. His voice cracked on the last word, revealing the truth he had been hiding from even himself. I should have come for you a long time ago. I should have been your father. And if you let me, I want to try now. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable this time. It was emotional, raw, filled with hope and hurt tangled together. Evan's shoulders sagged slightly, the weight of his fear loosening just a little. Behind them, Amy and Lou appeared quietly at the barn entrance, drawn by the tension they felt from outside. They didn't speak or interrupt. They simply watched, understanding they were witnessing the moment Nathan's secret finally broke open and the moment a father and son finally found each other again. Nathan reached out slowly, giving Evan the choice. Evan hesitated for only a heartbeat before stepping closer, allowing his father's hand to rest on his shoulder for the first time in years. And in that single, fragile moment, Heartland changed forever. The truth was finally out, and nothing would ever be the same again. The barn felt different after that moment, warmer somehow, as if the walls themselves understood the weight that had just been lifted. But the peace was fragile, delicate, hanging in the air like a candle flame fighting against a soft breeze. Nathan kept his hand on Evan's shoulder a moment longer before letting go, as if afraid the boy might vanish the second he blinked. Evan stayed still, unsure of what came next, unsure of how to breathe in a world where his father was suddenly real again. Amy stepped forward carefully, her expression gentle but full of questions. She didn't want to push, not with emotions so raw, but she sensed this was a turning point that needed a steady hand. Let's give you both some space, she murmured, touching Lou's arm. Lou nodded, her eyes filled with the kind of worrying only family could hold. They moved back, but they didn't leave. Something told them more was coming, something bigger than just a reunion. Nathan turned toward Jack, who stood quietly nearby, arms folded across his chest. For years, Jack had watched people come to Heartland with heavy stories, but this felt different. This wasn't just a troubled boy seeking shelter. This was a past Nathan had sealed shut, suddenly cracking open in front of everyone. Jack didn't say a word, but his steady gaze told Nathan exactly what he needed to hear. You can't run from this anymore. Evan shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between the three adults. I don't want to be a problem, he said softly. I just needed a place to go for a while. I can sleep outside if it's easier. I don't want to make anything messy here. Nathan's chest tightened. The idea of Evan sleeping outside hit him like a punch. Absolutely not, he said immediately, a firmness entering his voice for the first time since Evan arrived. You're not sleeping outside, Evan. You're not a burden. Not here. Evan lowered his gaze again, not fully believing the words yet. Trust didn't come easy, not after everything he'd been through. His fingers nervously picked at the frayed strap of his backpack, a habit he had likely developed from years of uncertainty. Amy stepped closer, her tone warm but steady. Evan, this ranch has seen its fair share of chaos. A teenager showing up doesn't scare us. She offered a small smile. You're safe here, truly. Evan swallowed, his throat tight. I just don't want to cause trouble. Jack's voice finally broke through the silence. Son, trouble is when a fence breaks or a horse goes missing. You're neither of those things. You're just a kid who needs a place to breathe. And Heartland can handle that. Nathan felt something loosen inside him, a sense of gratitude mixed with shame. Heartland was offering his son more grace than he had ever given him. He forced himself to meet Evan's eyes. I should have been there, he said, voice rough. I should have taken care of you from the beginning. Evan didn't respond right away. His silence wasn't angry. It was cautious, like he was trying to understand whether he could let himself believe in this new version of Nathan. Finally, he whispered, I just didn't want to be alone anymore. Those words were enough to break whatever resistance Nathan still held. He stepped forward, gently taking Evan's backpack off his shoulder before the boy could protest. "You're not alone now." "Not anymore." Lou stepped into the moment with the practical warmth she was known for. "We can set up a room for him in the house," she said quickly. "Or the loft, if he'd prefer. At least until we figure out what he needs." "That's not necessary," Evan murmured, though his tired eyes betrayed him. "I don't want to make anyone move things around." Amy shook her head with a soft laugh. "You clearly don't know Lou. She moves furniture for fun." Lou nudged her lightly. But the small joke worked Evan's shoulders relaxed just a little. Nathan looked around the barn, overwhelmed but determined. "Can we talk somewhere else?" he asked Evan quietly. "Just you and me?" Evan nodded, though hesitation still flickered in his eyes. "Okay." They headed toward the pasture bee. The truth always finds a way out, and today, Heartland is only one breath away from a secret that could change everything. Nathan thought he could bury his past, but the past has finally walked right up to the ranch. And now nothing will ever be the same again. Morning light touched the fields of Heartland, turning the grass into soft waves of gold. But even the warm sunrise could not calm the storm growing inside Amy. She stood near the corral, watching Nathan from a distance. His posture was tense, shoulders tight, hands tucked inside his jacket pockets like he was hiding something even from himself. For days he had been drifting around the ranch like a shadow, avoiding conversations, avoiding eye contact, avoiding everyone. It wasn't like him. Nathan was quiet by nature, but never this withdrawn. Something was wrong, and Amy felt it in her chest as clearly as the chill in the morning air. She stepped forward slightly, hoping he would turn around and notice her. Instead, Nathan kept his eyes fixed on the hills as if expecting something or someone to appear. His expression was far away, filled with worrying, maybe fear, maybe guilt. Amy couldn't tell, but she recognized the look. It was the face of a man bracing for impact. She wanted to ask him what was going on, to pull him out of the thoughts that were eating him alive. But every time she opened her mouth to speak, Nathan found a way to slip out of the moment. Today was no different. Amy walked closer, her boots crunching softly against the dirt. But just as she reached him, Nathan stepped back, startled. He mumbled something about needing to check the fences and hurried away without waiting for her response. For a second, Amy just stood there, stunned by how fast he fled, as if her presence was too heavy for him to carry. She could see the panic in his steps, the kind of panic that meant he wasn't just stressed, he was scared of something he didn't want anyone to know. Amy sighed deeply and looked toward the barns, wondering if she should follow him, but her heart told her to give him space. She turned toward the corral instead, but her thoughts stayed glued to Nathan. She knew secrets had a way of poisoning everything around them. She knew that when someone hid something this important, it eventually exploded in the worst way. And for the first time since Nathan arrived at Heartland, Amy felt the ground shift under her feet. Whatever he was hiding wasn't small. As she returned to her chores, she kept replaying his behavior over the past few days. The late-night phone call he quickly ended when she walked by. The way he froze when Lou mentioned a boy wandering near the ranch. The strange tension in Nathan's voice whenever someone asked him simple questions. Every sign pointed in one direction. He was protecting something or someone, and he didn't know how to face it. Amy tried to brush away the worrying, but it stuck to her like dust. The ranch had seen many secrets before, but something about this one felt heavier, more personal. As the breeze moved through the trees, Amy felt a quiet warning settle in her heart. Something was coming. Something that had been waiting at Nathan's doorstep for years. And whether he liked it or not, that truth was finally walking toward Heartland. Lou sat by the window at Maggie's, stirring her coffee without really tasting it. The morning rush buzzed around her, but her mind stayed fixed on the message she had just read. A neighbor from town claimed they had seen Nathan talking to a teenage boy near the old bus stop late in the evening, away from the usual traffic, away from curious eyes. The details were simple, but something about them felt strangely heavy. The neighbor mentioned how nervous Nathan looked, how the boy kept his head down, how their conversation seemed more like an argument than a casual meeting. Lou read the message twice, then a third time, trying to understand what it meant. Nathan was private, sure, but this was different. This wasn't a quiet man keeping to himself. This was someone hiding something in plain sight. She set her phone down, but her thoughts refused to settle. A teenage boy showing up out of nowhere wasn't normal. Not at Heartland, not when the ranch had been calm for months. Lou tried to tell herself it was nothing, that maybe it was just someone Nathan knew from before he arrived, but the worry crawling through her chest wouldn't let her believe it. Heartland had seen enough trouble to know when a storm was on the horizon. Lou finally picked up her phone again, scrolling through the message slowly. The neighbor had also added one detail she couldn't ignore: the boy looked like Nathan. Not just a little, but enough for the neighbor to comment on it. Same dark hair, same sharp eyes, same way of standing with one foot slightly back, as if ready to run. Lou felt her stomach tighten. She wasn't the type to jump to conclusions, but the resemblance painted a picture she didn't want to look at yet. She took a deep breath and dialed Amy's number. When Amy answered, her voice sounded tired, strained, like she had been carrying the weight of the morning alone. Lou didn't waste time. She told Amy everything: the message, the boy, the strange behavior that had been spreading across the ranch like an invisible fog. With every word, she heard Amy's worrying deepen. Amy confirmed what Lou already suspected. Nathan had been acting like a man with a secret strapped to his back. Something big enough to bend his posture and steal his sleep. After the call ended, Lou leaned against the counter, staring through the cafe window. People walked by outside, living their simple mornings, and touched by the tension building at Heartland. Lou wished she could let it go, but the truth was already forming a shape in her mind, a shape she didn't want to admit. The pieces were lining up without her permission. She gathered her things and stepped outside, letting the cold air hit her face. The wine carried the faint smell of dust and early snow, a quiet reminder that seasons changed whether people were ready or not. As she walked toward her truck, her thoughts kept circling back to Nathan. She liked him. He was good with the horses, respectful, hardworking. But none of that erased the fact that he was keeping something from them, something that involved a boy who looked just like him. Lou paused with her hand on the truck door, staring at the distant hills that lined the edge of town. Somewhere out there, Nathan was carrying a truth he didn't want anyone to see. And Lou could feel it now, clear as the breath in her chest. This wasn't just a personal problem. This was the kind of secret that could change Heartland. The kind that didn't stay hidden for long. She slipped into the driver's seat and started the engine, trying to steady her thoughts. The day felt heavier than it should have, as if the ranch was waiting for something to break open. Lou wasn't sure what the coming hours would bring, but one thing she knew for certain: the mysterious boy wasn't just another wandering face. He was connected to Nathan in a way that could shake everything loose, and whatever that connection was. They were about to find out. The afternoon sun dipped low as Jack finished tidying up the barn, sweeping the dust into a neat pile. The ranch was unusually silent, the kind of silence that made even the horses lift their heads as if sensing something unfamiliar in the air. Jack wiped his hands on his jeans and reached for a fresh bale of hay when the creaking sound of the barn door broke the quiet. It wasn't loud, but it was cautious, slow, unsure, like someone pushing it open with second thoughts. Jack turned, expecting to see Amy or Nathan, but instead he saw a boy standing in the doorway. A teenager, no more than 15 or 16, with dark hair falling over his forehead and eyes that held a strange mix of defiance and fear. His clothes were worn, his backpack frayed at the edges, and his hands trembled slightly even though he was trying hard to hide it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The boy kept shifting his weight, ready to leave at any second, while Jack studied him with the calm patience that came from years of reading people lost. Jack finally asked, though he already knew the answer wasn't simple. The boy shook his head slowly. He stepped a little closer, then stopped again, like his nerves were pulling him backward. He looked around the barn as if searching for something familiar, but his gaze kept drifting back to Jack, After a long pause, he finally spoke. His voice was soft, scratchy, as if he hadn't slept in days. I'm looking for someone. Jack raised an eyebrow. Who might that be? The boy took a breath, his hands tightening around the strap of his backpack. Nathan, he said quietly. Nathan Green. The name left his lips with a weight Jack immediately noticed. Like it wasn't just a name, it was a truth the boy wasn't sure how to carry anymore. Jack narrowed his eyes slightly, studying the boy with renewed curiosity. There was something familiar in his face, a hint of Nathan's sharp features. The same steady gaze, except the boy's was shaking. Jack didn't jump to conclusions, but his instincts were rarely wrong. He's around, Jack replied gently. But before I call him, maybe you should tell me who you are. The boy's mouth opened, then closed again. He looked at the floor, then the barn door, then the horses in their stalls. Every second he hesitated, the truth pressed harder against his chest. Jack could see it, the silent battle happening behind those young eyes. The boy wasn't just nervous, he was scared of the answer he would give. Scared of what Nathan would say when he saw him.